So in this video we'll look at how we can add some force to our object, our cube, programmatically. So the first thing to say is I'm continuing on from the last video, but I've just deleted all of the code that we wrote inside the script, so I'm just left with the boilerplate start function and update function inside my class. So you should do likewise. Before we start this section of the script, we need to make a few additions inside of our scene. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a rigid body to our cube so that it implements the gravity engine inside of Unity, which we'll then leverage with the code. So, and we've of course already done this when we explored physics. So, but you might recall the way that you do this is by going add component and find a rigid body and add a rigid body to your cube. Once you've done that, save and go back to your script, and then we will add the code to the script to utilize the force that we can apply programmatically, which the rigid body will respond to. So the first thing that we're going to do is make a variable called rigid body. So I'm going to make a private variable and it's of the type rigid body, and I'm just going to call it RB, and then in start I'm going to set the variable. So I'm going to say RB equals, and what I'm going to do is get the rigid body component that the game object the script is attached to, which is the cube. So I'm going to use the get component command, and then then the way that this command works is you put angle brackets and then you say what the name of the component is you're after, which is a rigid body component, and we put function brackets on the end of it. So that RB has now been set to the component inside of my inspector that's attached to the cube. I just attached it to the cube a second ago. So what we can do then is once we've got that rigid body, we can use some of its properties, one of which is add force, to make it move in our scene. So we're going to do that on a space bar. So when we hit the space bar, we're going to make our cube jump up in the air. So and it will fall back down again using gravity. So we're going to say if, and once again we're going to use an if statement to capture the input from the space bar. So I'm going to write if input dot get key down and then the key code that I'm after is space, the same as before. So this code is identical to the code we wrote a moment ago, but here we need to use the add force command to add force to our rigid body attached to our cube. So we're going to say RB, so that's the rigid body, dot add force, there we are, and then that's a function, and we need to tell it what kind of force we want to add to it. So the first thing is to tell it what direction we want to add it in, and we're going to force the cube up into the air. So that is a vector, and it's a vector 3 because it's 3 dimensions, and we want it to go up. So obviously this is all new and a little bit strange to you, but you'll quickly get the hang of vectors, which are trajectories in 3D space. And then so we could leave it like that, but actually we want to give it a multiplier because we want some force applied to this. So we'll just say 300. So what we're hoping now is that when we apply this, we will, I'm missing a bracket again. There we go. helpfully indicated by that little red underline. So once we run this, we should be able to press the space key and watch the cube jump up in the air. So let's run our script. So our scene is running. I've pressed the play button and our scene is running. And if I now hit the space bar with the scene in focus, the game scene in focus, you can see the cube jumps into the air. So we've applied force to it. If I keep pressing the space bar, it will jump very high. Eventually it will come back down again. So you can immediately see how you could use this to create some simple game mechanics. Okay, in the next video we will use some force to move the cube in a different direction and perhaps knock into some other objects.